Major League training camp started for Henry Aaron in 1954. Here we are through the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Henry, I get a feeling, though, that it's still as much of a challenge to come and do it all over again as it was when you went to the first one.
Well, Marlo, believe it or not, it's more of a challenge now. At that time, I had something to prove. You know, I had something to prove. I had a job to try and win and a family to feed. Of course, now it's a lot different. I feel like I've established myself a little bit, but still in all, you know, you got to go out here every day and challenge the pitcher. And this is the thing that makes this game so interesting, is going out challenging these different pitchers.
In 1954, when the Bobby Thomson injury came about, what Henry, when Mom packed that old suitcase in 1952 back in Mobile, in your wildest thoughts or imagination, did you ever feel that this career could reach the height that it has? With the old, I guess, rough and tumble would be the way to describe the Logans, the Burdett's, and the Matthews, and you fit into that picture? You didn't fit into that kind of a category because you were kind of quiet, and still are, of course. But do you miss that kind of atmosphere on a ball club? It's not in the average club today, is it?
Well, that's very true. Of course, I think that's what have happened in so many cases, that we play so many games, 162 games, and as you know, you don't really get a chance to sit down and talk to a player. Where in the 1950s, we had a chance to take a train from Atlanta to Chicago.
Trains were a lot more fun, weren't they?
That's right, they were, and I think it kind of grouped the guys together and united them together more. You know, now you get on a plane, hop on a plane and fly from, say, Atlanta to Los Angeles, and you're there in 3 hours, and somebody's sitting in the back of the plane. You don't really get a chance to communicate with the fellas, and you really don't get a chance to know them, you know, and so it was a lot more, I think, a group rather than now, you know.
Do you think a fellow like a Williams or a Gar or a little Marty Perez misses something in not having that?
I think they do, you know, seriously, because I learned a lot from Matthews and Burdett and Spahn and Bruton and these fellas just sitting on a train, you know, for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, discussing and talking about baseball, you know, learning something from some of the veterans, you know. Now you just don't have a chance to communicate with the kids simply because of the way the travel is.
Tomorrow, on Update 3 of A Weekend with Henry Aaron, the Hammer talks about the chase to the great Bambino's home run record and how it's affected his life. Henry, you're chasing a Babe Ruth, and the magical home run mark of all time is on everybody's mind. It's the baseball story, even though it's maybe 2 or 3 seasons away. Has it affected you? Has it affected your outlook or your life or anything regarding baseball?
No, it hasn't. Not as far as approaching this game is concerned. It has changed my life as some of the people, the news media, of course, is beginning to close in on me a little bit, you know, of course. But I think as far as my philosophy, as far as pertaining to baseball, it still remains the same thing. I look at baseball as a challenge, and I accept it as a challenge, and I go out there with the philosophy and the meanings of trying to outguess the pitcher and the catcher.
Henry, how accessible are you as a young player comes in? I know Gar has given you a lot of credit. In other words, do you let them come to you, or if you think you can help them, do you approach them?
Well, I kind of let them come to me, Marlo. Seriously, I don't like to go to a player because I believe that, especially if a player has been very successful in the minor leagues. Take a Dusty Baker, whom I think is going to be a tremendous ball player. You know, this kid has all the ability of being a great ball player. Well, you don't tamper with a kid like this, you know, even though you can see some fault in some of the things that he's done, you know. But now if he comes to me and asks me about a certain play, or how would he play a certain hit in the outfield, well, I'm going to try and help him as much as I can, you know. But as far as me trying to show him how to hit, I don't think it would be wise for me to tamper with his swing at all.
You know, speaking of Baker, there's a kid I was thinking about just the other day. He reminds me a lot of you because his approach, the way he hits, the way he feels and everything. Wouldn't you have rather broken in when you did with the situation instead of coming to this camp with an Aaron, a Gar, a Carty, Sonny Jackson? Here's a fellow who is wondering if he's at the right place at the right time in his career.
Well, that's very true. Of course, I think that he has to look at it the same way I tried and talked to Earl Williams last year. I told Earl that Earl was getting a little disgusted. As you know, he had a tremendous spring, and he was wondering when was he going to ever break into the lineup. And I told Earl all he had to do was just stay in shape, and when he ever got the chance to play regularly, you know, be ready and be prepared, you know, not overweight, you know. And he did get the chance in Philadelphia. He's been there ever since. Now, this same thing is going to happen to Dusty Baker. He probably won't break into the lineup right away if Rico, if healthy, you know. And of course, all indication that he is, you know. And he just got to wait for his chance to get into the lineup, you know. After all, you know, this kid has a lot of tools, and I just hate to see him just wasted, you know, being rusty or sitting on the bench.
Tonight on the Late News, when we have part 4 and the wrap-up of A Weekend with Henry Aaron, the great Hammer talks about the past, the present, and the future of himself and his family. Henry, let me throw a couple of names at you, what you might hope for them in the next year, 2 years, 5 years. Hank Jr. and Larry. Henry, I get the feeling the combination of things, the maturity of Henry Aaron, the salary that's come about, the publicity that is growing for you year by year, that you now are a much happier man, a more carefree man than years gone by. Do you get that feeling?
Well, Marlo, I feel like I've always, anytime I came to a big, I've been coming down here for 19 years, and I feel like this year that it's more of a challenge to me, you know. And just like I said, you know, if you don't have anything to drive you, you know, you don't have anything to go out there and play for, you know. So I feel like not only about the contract itself, you know, but I'm thinking about going out there, participating in the game. I tell you one thing I'm happy about this year more than I was last year is about my knee.
Right.
It's been feeling real good. In fact, I don't have it.
Off your mind,
yes, certainly have, and I haven't played with any rapping or anything, and so I just feel great about this year. I feel like I'm going to have a tremendous year, and I feel like the Atlanta Braves is going to have a tremendous year.
Well, those are all things that make it better for everybody concerned.
That's right.
Henry, and that little snickle right there and that chuckle is the thing that epitomizes you now. You're still as intense. The game means as much as ever, but you're looser. You let. You're more involved. You're involved in things with your daughter at Fisk.
Yes.
You're a community man now, but you've all taken it in stride, and it's all a great part of a more fulfilling life now.
Well, that's true, Marlon. Of course, I think it comes from growing up, too, you know. I mean, the older you get, the wiser you get, you know, and of course...
What are you looking at me for?
And of course, the closer you get to your family. You know, I try to always be close to my daughters, you know. Of course, all of my kids I've been close to, but I have gotten myself involved in a lot of things in Atlanta, and I've gotten myself involved in some of the things that she is in, also at Fisk University. And I'm just happy that I can be a part of and be able to lend a helping hand to these things.
A Weekend with Henry Aaron. We hope that the folks have enjoyed it, and most of all, Henry, I hope you've enjoyed kind of talking and letting the folks hear some of the other things about you besides baseball.